Radio
Je suis à Dakar, au Sénégal, et j'écoute la WADR 94.9 FM.
West Africa Democracy.
West Africa Democracy Radio.
We are West Africa Democracy Radio.
94.9 FM.
WADR. Promoting dialogue.
Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Embattled Nigerian Senator Natasha returns to National Assembly, denied entry.
Speaker, I'm very sorry, and I say this with a lot of difficulty, that if that is the turn of event, then we in the minority, for the records, cannot be part of the swearing-in.
And Ghana MP for Blekuma North sworn into office amidst a walkout out of minority in Parliament. Open Society Foundation launches Africa-led initiative to address emerging challenges.
The problems we're seeing in the world today, be it climate change or a pandemic or the global rise of authoritarianism, require coordination and cooperation across borders to support regional efforts, be it around peace or democracy or economics.
And ahead of October presidential election in Cameroon, 81 candidates submit application. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast this evening. Let's begin in Nigeria, where embattled Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan on Tuesday made good a vow to resume at the National Assembly but was denied entry. Upon her arrival around noon, the Kogi Central lawmaker who rode in a black car was stopped by security operatives at the first gate of the National Assembly. After some minutes, Senator Natasha alighted from her vehicle and walked into the complex premises in Abuja, accompanied by her supporters, including activist Aisha Yusufu. She was stopped again at the second gate and asked to turn back. However, the senator and her supporters made their way past the checkpoint only to meet a locked gate. Despite attempt to gain entry, Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan and her team of supporters were denied access.
It's not about beating the first and second gates and barricade. It's about me and a duly elected senator walking into the chambers to resume my constituted duties as I was elected and mandated by the good people of Kogi Central and INEC. And it's unfortunate that we got in today, which is the 22nd of July 2025, having duly notified the Senate through 2 letters that I would be resuming functions today. As a matter of fact, I'm disappointed on 2 grounds. One is the number of armed policemen that we met outside, all well kitted with guns, charged at a female senator who is unarmed with her people here, patriotic Nigerians. And the second thing is the fact that the Senate, under the leadership of Godswill Akpabio, have decided to become lawbreakers and by denying me entrance into the chambers to resume my duty. There's been some conversations in the media by his own team, trying to twist the narrative that the judge did not order my reinstatement. And I'd like to clarify that.
That was Mbatu lawmaker representing Kogi Central, Senator Natasha Akpoti. Well, still on parliamentary matters, but in Ghana, where the National Democratic Congress NDC's candidate, Ewura Bin, has been sworn in as a member of parliament for Blekuma North after the minority side of parliament staged a walkout. A swearing-in follows a closely fought parliamentary rerun in Blekuma North ordered by the Electoral Commission over irregularities. She narrowly defeated the New Patriotic Party's Akwa Afriye, polling 34,090 votes against Afriye's 33,881. Nade Ditete in Accra report.
The swearing-in, officiated by Speaker Alban Bagbin, proceeded despite a protest exit by the minority MPs who objected to the Speaker's refusal to grant their Chief Whip and MP for Nsawam Edredri, Frank Anodompre, permission to address the House before the oath-taking. Frank Anodompre, who sought to speak on behalf of the minority, was blocked by Majority Leader Mahama Yaraga, who argued that comments could only be made after the formal induction. The Speaker upheld the Majority Leader's objection.
When you go through the guidelines for speakers in handling the business of the House, it's very clear after reading the communication from the Electoral Commission, the Speaker is enjoined to invite the member to be sworn in. That is what is the procedure. And so I'm enjoined by the established procedure and the conventions to invite her to be sworn in. After that, the House is given the opportunity to make comments,
prompting Anodompre to declare the minority's withdrawal from the process.
Speaker, I'm very sorry, and I say there is a lot of difficulty that if that is the turn of event, then we in the minority, for the records, cannot be part of the swearing-in. Yes, we cannot be part of the swearing-in. We are working on it.
Unfazed by the boycott, Parliament went ahead with the ceremony, officially inducting Irabna Obin into the House.
I, Obin Irabna, having been elected a Member of Parliament, do in the name of the Almighty God swear, and that I will faithfully and conscientiously discharge the duties of a Member of Parliament. So help me God.
Majority Leader Mahama Yaraga assured that the additional number, which now gives the governing NDC an absolute majority in the House, will not be abused.
John Dramani Mahama said when he was being sworn in, still stands, that the National Democratic Congress will not abuse the majority given to it by Ghanaians. We will use it wisely, we will use it properly, and we will make sure that these numbers inure to the benefit of Ghanaians.
For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, in Côte d'Ivoire, the government has launched a bold new initiative aimed at strengthening peace and social cohesion, especially as the country heads into a sensitive electoral season. On Monday, the Palais de Culture in Trenchville was filled with energy and hope as 6,500 young people were officially inducted into the Young Peace Volunteers Project. The initiative is a collaboration between the Ministries of Youth Promotion and National Cohesion. Augustine Coley report.
These young volunteers, drawn from across political, ethnic and social backgrounds, have been entrusted with a critical mission to serve as ambassadors of peace in their communities. Their roles include promoting civic values, preventing conflict and encouraging peaceful dialogue, especially during election periods, which have historically been tense in the country. Inspired by a successful pilot project in the Caval region, the program will now expand to 17 regions nationwide. Training will cover civic education, conflict management, and raising awareness against hate speech, radicalization, and violent extremism. Minister Mamadou Touré of Youth Promotion emphasized the inclusive nature of the program, saying it brings together young leaders from all walks of life, including civil society and neighborhood associations. This project is seen as a major milestone in Côte d'Ivoire's journey towards inclusive governance, social cohesion, and a peaceful democratic future.
Augustine Coley filed that report, staying with Côte d'Ivoire, where public debate is intensifying over possible alternatives for the main opposition political parties whose leading candidates remain ineligible for the October 2025 presidential elections. With just 3 months to go before the polls, former President Laurent Gbagbo of the PPACI and Tijan Jam of the PDCI are still stripped from running. In response, some party executives and members are urging their political institutions to consider alternative candidates to represent them in the upcoming election. The situation is also drawing strong reaction from eligible voters who are closely monitoring the electoral process. Yeri Sankole Danko with a report.
The PPACI and the PDCI are gathering sponsorships for their designated candidates, Laurent Gbagbo and Tidjane Thiam. Hit by a court decision, the two political leaders are so far ineligible for the October presidential polls. While their respective parties are calling for all the candidates to be open to alternatives, the leadership of their respective political parties has reiterated that they will be the only candidates. For this old man in the streets of Abidjan, who is following this situation closely, the decision of both parties is the right direction. In any party, the opponents think there is no plan B, because plan B is not the reliable school of politics. The PPACI and the PDCI are currently maintaining their positions. Laurent Gbagbo and Tidjane Thiam aim to be the candidates of their political parties in the presidential election next October, even though they are not eligible.
Sankle Janko with that report. Now, a court in Mali on Tuesday rejected an appeal by Barrick Mining to release 4 employees arrested last November. George Sambasa said the latest development in a running stand-up between the Canadian firm and the Mali government over taxes and ownership of mining operations in the country. The appeal by the company, which has dismissed the allegations against the 4 local employees as baseless, was determined by the judge to be unfounded, according to Alifa Habib Kone, a lawyer for Barrick. The employees face charges including money laundering and violation of other regulations. Barrick has said it refutes the charges against its employees. Christopher Teacher completes the story.
Barrick and Mali's military-run government have been in negotiations since 2023 over the implementation of a new mining code that raises taxes and gives the government a greater share in the country's gold mines. Barrick owns 80% of the Loulou-Gonkoto mining complex in Mali, and the government owns the rest. Operations have been suspended since mid-January after the government blocked Barrick Gold's exports and seized 3 metric tons of its stocks. Malian authorities arrested the 4 employees in late November, and they have been in pre-trial detention in Bamako. Mali also issued an arrest warrant last December for Barrick CEO Mark Bristol, who is based in Toronto. He is accused of money laundering and violating financial regulations, according to the warrant documents. Government in Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, all led by juntas, are all seeking to renegotiate new terms with gold miners to gain a bigger share of mining revenue at a time when gold prices have soared. Mali represents 14% of Barrick Gold's output, and the company generated $949 million in revenue from its operations there in the first 9 months last year.
Christopher Teacher with that report. In neighboring Guinea, the Consumer Union is reacting to the closure of more than 1,700 industrial units by the Ministry of Trade and Industry. The affected units, primarily involved in the production of mineral water, were shut down for failing to comply with state regulations. Their products are now set to be withdrawn from the industrial market. The Guinean Consumers Union, which has long raised concerns about the unchecked proliferation of mineral water production units in Conakry, has welcomed the government's decision. The union emphasized the potential health risk these unregulated products pose to consumers. Let's take a listen to Ousmane Keita, who is president of the Guinean Consumer Union, on this matter.
Nous saluons la décision du ministère du Commerce d'avoir effectivement eu le courage.
We applaud the decision of the Ministry of Commerce to have the courage to close the 1,724 non-compliant industrial units to the Guinean regulations regarding the commercialization of their products. For us, it is a brave decision because it will obviously have a positive impact on the health of Guineans. So yes, we agree with this decision. But most of these units are involved in the water sector, in the water production. I can tell you that we have had several complaints about the analysis that had been done by some consumers after being impacted on their health, who have told us about the quality of the water they bought. I prefer the 14 million consumers and ask the thousands of consumers who have lost their jobs to ask their employers to comply so that they can get their jobs back.
D'exiger de leur patron qu'ils rentrent en conformité pour qu'ils puissent retrouver leur travail.
Osman Keita is president of the Guinean Consumer Union. Let's take it back to Ghana, where the police hospital is set to conduct a mass burial for 300 unidentified and unclaimed bodies currently held in its morgue. The somber exercise is scheduled for August 11, 2025. The exercises aim at providing a dignified burial for individuals, including paupers, victims of road accidents, crime victims, and other unidentified or abandoned persons. In line with the upcoming burial, the hospital management advised the public to adopt precautionary safety measures in their daily movements. These include carrying a national identity card at all times, sharing emergency contact information with family and friends, informing loved ones of their whereabouts, and staying informed about local laws and safety regulations. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and online on wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Embattled Nigerian Senator Natasha returns to National Assembly, denied entry. And Ghana MP for Blakuma North sworn into office amidst a walkout by minority in Parliament. And still ahead in the news, Open Society Foundations launches Africa-led initiatives to address emerging challenges. And ahead of October presidential election in Cameroon, 81 candidates submit the applications. We do have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, we're streaming live on wadr.org, and do join our live streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Now, in a major development, the Open Society Foundations, OSF, has launched an Africa-led initiative anchored on three key pillars. These are democratic future in Africa, resource future in Africa, and economic prosperity. Launched in Dakar Monday, OSF says the long-term programs have targeted outcomes to inspire change, provide opportunities, and even resource distribution among the continent's population. The project was announced at a press conference in Dakar, Senegal, by a high-powered OSF delegation, including Dr. Ales Soros, chair of the board of directors, the president, Benefa Noriji, and the vice president. As Abdullah Hassan reports, the launch wrapped up a tour to Ghana and Senegal by the delegation that began last week.
The Open Society Foundations, OSF, says the three programs initiative, Democratic Future in Africa, Resource Futures in Africa, and Economic Prosperity, launched in Dakar on Monday, are tailored to respond to emerging trends. Benefa Noriji is president, OSF.
The problems we're seeing in the world today, be it climate change or a pandemic or the global rise of authoritarianism, require coordination and cooperation across borders to support regional efforts, be it around peace or democracy or economics, where we put our shared humanity above transactional interests.
The programs will be implemented on a continent-wide approaches despite the conflict, fading democratic values, social injustice, and climate change, among other factors stalling Africa's growth. From DRC to Sudan, Somalia, and the Central Sahel region of West Africa, OSF is leaving no community behind. Benefa Noriji explains.
We understand it's a difficult landscape. It's a volatile world right now. And we are looking for the art of the possible, people who have the moral imagination to really be able to creatively reimagine a world that is full of rights, equity, and justice. And so where we find those individuals, organizations, institutions, government leaders, we will seek to partner with them. And the amount is less important to me than the shared values with which we will pursue these endeavors together.
OSF's new strategic initiative comes after the completion of a restructuring which the leadership says aims to adapt to modern-day challenges such as insecurity, political instability, and socio-economic predicaments. The Open Society Foundations has in the last 40 years disbursed more than $2 billion to over 50,000 organizations and individuals around the world, including Africa, to advance democracy, promote freedoms, protect rights, and ensure justice.
Abdullah Hassan filed a report. The Cameroon Electoral Commission, ELECAM, closed the application phase for the presidential election of October 12, 2025 at midnight on Monday. A total of 81 applications were received. Among the major figures in the running is the outgoing president, Paul Biya, aged 92, who is seeking a seventh term under the banner of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM. Facing him are several opponents already well known in the Cameroonian political landscape: Maurice Kamto Madidem, Joshua Osi, SDF, and Cabral Libi, all in a race for the second time. The candidacy of Dalatu Hamada, a young man from Adamoa, is attracting attention. Age only 31, he submitted his candidacy, even though the constitution sets the minimum age for candidates for the Supreme Judiciary at 35. The competition will also see the emergence of new faces such as Hilaire Marquet and Zipang, nominated by the Progressive Movement, and Pierre Kwemo, representing the Union of Socialist Movement. All applications must now be examined by the Constitutional Council, which has 12 days to decide and release the final official list of candidates authorized to compete.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, let's take you back to our earlier report on the launch of Africa-led initiative by the OSF. And now this is anchored on three major development key pillars: democratic future in Africa, resource future in Africa, and economic prosperity. Launched in Dakar Monday, OSF says the long-term programs have targeted outcomes to inspire change, provide opportunities, and even resource distribution among the continent's population. Our guest is the president of Open Society Foundations, Benifa Noriji. She shares more light on the new initiatives.
So today, Open Society Foundations is pleased to announce three bold Africa-led initiatives that are providing long-term support to the continent around various key issues that we feel are important for building a future in Africa that is peaceful, democratic, and just. These are not just ordinary programs, they're long-term investments. They're intended to promote democracy, peace, prosperity, and we want them to be based from the lived realities of people on the continent. So we don't come with a ready-made program that has an idea of what should be done, but in each country we will find like-minded individuals, institutions, and even government departments that want to promote human rights, equity, and justice, and we will partner with them to support their aspirations for a African continent that provides a better future for all.
So what are the 3 points?
The 3 programs are democratic futures in Africa, and that one is really to reimagine politics and governance, to ensure that governments are actually accountable to their people and actually are thinking about the principle of Ubuntu and a shared humanity moving forward. The second program is a program called Resource Futures in Africa, looking at the immense wealth that Africa has but doesn't benefit from. Africa basically ends up not benefiting from its natural resources and ends up actually paying more in debt in terms of interest than other places in the world. And so we want to make sure that Africa benefits from its great wealth, particularly critical minerals right now, and is actually able to leapfrog in its prosperity. We also have a program called Economic Prosperity that works around helping governments to think about new economic models and creating new jobs. And our last initiative is looking at the dangers we are seeing right now with backsliding. As young people are disillusioned with what they're seeing and they don't see a future for themselves, countries are becoming destabilized and actually falling into conflict. We are very worried about the situation in the Sahel, in Sudan, conflict in DRC. How is it that we can help support initiatives for peace, but not short-term peace, community-centered peace that allows for communities themselves to find the solutions and actually look at lasting ways in which we can remove conflict?
Now, Madam President, in all of these 3 programs that you've mentioned, like you said, DRC, Somalia, Sudan, Central Sahel, more and more we see that the civil society and even ordinary citizens are becoming more and more repressed or suppressed. How do you imagine OSF, through its partners, like you said, working through to achieve this mandate in the long term?
So I don't want to underestimate the difficulties that we're seeing, not just in Africa, but globally. We are seeing very volatile and dangerous times for those people who support issues of human rights, equity, and justice. But we also see huge opportunity, huge optimism amongst, and particularly in Africa, amongst young people, amongst women, amongst groups that have traditionally been excluded. What we are finding is there's new moral imagination, a will to reimagine the world we live in. And especially in young people, what I see is young people who've never lived in democratic spaces are actually speaking the language of open society and human rights. And that's very encouraging to see because the world these young people are going to inherit is actually a more and more dangerous and difficult world. And in that, what kinds of activities are we going to support? I think what we're looking for are new ideas, new imagination, creativity, what we call the art of the possible in a turbulent world.
And finally, OSF has, before now, OSIWA has supported Africa for more than 4 decades. How are these programs going to be any different from what you've done before? At least we know that OSF has so far donated more than $2.3 billion to more than 50,000 organizations across the world. But how do you hope that these new programs will reshape the future of Africa for Africans and precisely, Madam President, youth?
So these new initiatives that we've announced are essentially because we are in a changed world. We have Open Society Foundations has provided support in Africa for decades. And we've done different kinds of work, consolidating democracy or freedom of the press or natural resource governance. What we have done today is we've made a recommitment to Africa around the key areas that we feel are coming up again and again and again when we talk to people in Africa. And so these are the issues that people within Africa in different places are saying this is the most important issue for us. Based on that feedback, we have constructed our initiatives that will now respond to the major challenges that people on the continent feel that we should do.
Benefa Noruji is the president of the Open Society Foundations. And in the sport news, Nigeria edge ARC rivals South Africa 2-1 in a pulsating Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON semi-finals on Tuesday evening to book their place in the final and keep alive hopes of a record-extending 10th continental title. In the match billed as a final before the final, Rashida Ajibade and Michelle Alozie delivered when it mattered most, scoring either side of a Linda Matolo penalty to help the Super Falcons avenge their 2022 loss to Bayana and underline their dominance on African soil. Well, for South Africa, their title defense ends in heartbreak, but they will regroup for the third place playoff. Meanwhile, coming up tonight at 7 p.m., Morocco and Ghana are set to collide under the lights at the Prince Moulay Abdullah Stadium in Rabat in the second semi-final of the 2024 CAF Total Energy WAFCON. With a place in the final at stake, both teams head into the clash with different narratives but identical goals. For Morocco, it's a dream of a second consecutive final on home soil. For Ghana, it's a chance to re-establish themselves as African giants after years of falling short. The host nation, Morocco, have enjoyed an unbeaten run in the last 4, showing technical fluidity and control against their respective opponents. What's certain is that both camps are battle ready, physically, mentally, and tactically, and neither is backing down on their dreams to reach the finals. And that's it on this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Umudanugo for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, Twitter, formerly Twitter, Instagram, at WDL News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Imo Edet. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia.